Okay, so solving linear inequalities. The steps that we're going to follow, we're going to have 4 steps that we're going to follow. Our first step, we're going to solve for y. So when we're given an inequality, we're going to solve for y, which basically means we're going to get it into slope-intercept form. Okay, we know how to do that. Step 2, we're then going to graph that slope-intercept form. Step 3 and 4, this is our new stuff. Okay, step 3, we're going to select a test point and either half plane, and I'll explain to you what a half plane means in just a minute. The test point that I am going to recommend that you use almost 100% of the time, not always, but majority of the time, the test point that I'm going to recommend that you guys use is 0, 0. So basically you're selecting an order pair, and we're going to substitute those numbers into our equation to see if our graph, or where to shade the half plane, okay? So underneath your select a test point, go ahead and write the ordered pair 0, 0. And then the final step, you're going to shade the half plane that contains the solution. So another little thing that kind of is helping me remember which one to shade, you're going to shade towards it. Oh, yeah. So you're going to shade towards the solution if it's true. Shade away or run away if solution is false.
Hey, girls.
Do you have a pass? Thank you. Can you take your hood off for me, please, and keep it off? Appreciate it. Okay, so just a couple of things that helps me remember how to complete these. So your test point, you're going to use 0, 0, the order pair 0, 0. And then you're going to know how to shade. Shade towards the solution, so you're going to run towards the solution and shade that part. Shade away or run away if the solution is false. Okay, so when you are graphing linear inequalities, you're going to graph solid lines and you're going to graph dashed lines. You need to know which one you're going to use for which type of inequality. Now, think about when we graphed, well, what inequality signs do you think you're going to use for solid? Any ideas? So here's our inequality signs, right? Greater than or less than. Which one do you think is going to get the solid line? Greater than or greater than and equal to? Yeah. So your solid line that you're going to graph will be greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Your dashed line you'll graph if it does not have that or equal to sign under it. Okay. This bottom part, guys, this bottom part here, you're only going to really kind of rely on this bottom part after you test it. Okay, so you're really only going to rely on this bottom part, the information I'm going to give you for this bottom part after you test it. So you're going to shade above the line if it's greater than. And that line is called your boundary, okay? So it's going to be greater than. So above, if it's greater than or equal to, and then you're going to shade below the boundary line if it's less than. But you can't always, that's not 100% foolproof, and you'll see what I mean by that as we get going through our notes here. Give you guys about 30 more seconds to write this down, and then we're going to start looking at our examples. I believe we have 8 example problems today. We have, everyone's here today? Nope. Nope. You're alive. You're here. We're happy to see you.
I definitely should have said no.
Not feeling good again?
I just don't want to be here.
Oh, yeah. That's no reason for that. Okay. Example number 1. Okay. So here is our inequality. We have 2x minus 3y is less than 12. Now, our first step says we need to solve for y, meaning we have to get that y by itself in order to write it in slope-intercept form. So I have this equation here, 2x minus 3y is less than 12. I'm solving for y, so that means I want to get the y by itself. So what do I need to do in order to write this in slope-intercept form? Not add the 2x, but yeah, I'm going to minus 2x from both sides. Okay. So on my left side, I have negative 3y is less than, and then how do I write my right side down? Plus 12, right? So it's a plus. You're okay. Okay. Y is still not by itself, so what's the next step I need to do in order to get the y by itself? Divided by negative 3 on both sides. Good. Okay. So now I have, now, when I divide by a negative, what happens to my inequality sign? Okay, so flip your inequality sign. And then we're going to take negative 2 divided by negative 3. I can do that, but I'm going to get a decimal, right? So we're going to leave it 2 over 3, and it's a positive because 2 negatives equal a positive. So we have 2/3 x. And then I take positive 12 divided by negative 3 and get? Okay. So now we graph this. Okay. So when we go to graph this, all we're going to do is graph our y-intercept first. So I start at my origin, and I go down 4 spots, right? There's my y-intercept. From there, I graph my slope. So how do I find my slope from here?
Go up 2 over 3.
Okay. And then I'm going to get one more line up 2 over 3. Whoops. Up 2, 1, 2. Okay. When I go to plot this line, based on the inequality sign, is it going to be a solid line or a dashed line? It's going to be a dashed line. So go ahead and graph your line using a dashed line. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this on mine, you guys.
Chan, can you get me an orange one?
Is it because you wanted to match? No, Dylan. Matching orange and orange. Okay. I've never really heard anybody say they like yellow before.
I love it.
I like to hear that. I like uniqueness. Okay.
Why is it dotted?
It's dotted because it's based on the inequality sign. It's an inequality. Right? What is this? What are we doing? Oh, just wait, Riley.
That's
It
one
gets a lot more
dotted line.
confusing.
That's a dotted line. You like that dotted line?
No.
My lines are not going to be as beautiful as yours because I don't have a straight edge that I can use on this. Okay.
I mean, you do. You can use a ruler.
Step 3 says select a test point in either half plane. What's the test point I want you guys to use?
0, 0.
Okay, so I'm going to, 0, 0 is our origin, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that ordered pair right there in my origin. All that means that you're going to do then is you're going to go up to your original equation and you're going to substitute for your x and y. So what do I substitute for my x?
0.
What do I substitute for my y?
0.
Okay. Well, what's 2 times 0?
0.
What's 3 times 0?
0.
What's 0 minus 0? Is 0 less than 12?
Yes.
Okay, so that statement is true, right? So 0 is less than 12. So if that statement is true, we're going to shade towards the solution. So we're going to shade towards the solution. So that means I'm going to shade. Oh, I don't want to use that. Hold on, let me get a lighter color. So that means I'm going to shade the solution. My solution's right up here. So I'm going to shade all that.
I remember last year on a test, I colored in every single box.
Nope, that's not accurate. Don't color in every single box.
That's what I did. And Mr. Ricky just laughed at me. Because I took the time.
To shade in every single box and make it look nice and pretty.
Yep. I'm going to do that.
Do you think maybe he's thinking who's laughing now because you're here again and
Probably.
he's not?
Yeah, I was kind of mad about that one.
I sent him a message last week, but he doesn't check Messenger often, I guess.
I'm a friend of Christmas.
Well, because you said he coaches Gwinnett, I was asking about that, and then I had a student I wanted him to touch base with. Okay, moving on.
See? Every single box.
Every single box. Example number 2. We're going to follow the exact same steps. Okay, so we have those 4 steps that we're going to follow. Our first step is solve for y. Oh, guys,
Yeah, I'm like, how did we decide what?
sorry about that. It should be x plus 5y is less than or equal to 10. Will you remind me at the end of class to go back and put that in the PowerPoint? Okay, so again, we're solving for y. So we're going to get it in slope-intercept form. So if I'm solving for y, I circle my y. How do I get the y by itself? What do I do first here, Josh? Minus x on both sides. Rewrite my inequality. So I have 5y is less than or equal to, and what do I have on my right side?
Negative x plus 10.
Okay. Y is still not by itself, so my next step, by 5. Now, do I need to flip my inequality sign this time? Because I am not dividing by a negative. Good job. Okay. Negative 1 divided by 5, I'm going to leave as what?
Negative x over 5.
Okay, so negative 1 over 5 or x over 5, however you want to write that. And then 10 divided by 5 is a positive 2. Okay, step 1's done. So I have my inequality written in slope-intercept form, so then I'm going to go ahead and graph it. What do I graph first?
2.
The 2 on the y-axis, right? So I'm going to start at my origin, go up 2. Okay, now what, Riley?
Down 1.
Down 1 and over.
5.
Okay, now if I try to graph the slope again from this pot, that's point there, I'm going to go off the grid. So I'm going to come to this point and I'm going to do the opposite, meaning I'm going to go up 1 and then to the left 5. 1, 2. That's going to get me 3 points that I can graph my line. Now, when I go to graph my line, is it going to be a solid line or a dotted line? Solid, because it's greater than, or excuse me, because it's less than or equal to then.
Everybody.
Okay?
Look at everybody.
From here, we need to select a test point. The test point that we're going to use is what? 0, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and write my test point in. And then I'm going to substitute to see if it works. So I go back to my original equation and I substitute what for x?
0.
What do I substitute for y?
0.
Is less than or equal to 10. Okay. Well, 5 times 0 is 0. What's 0 plus 0?
0.
So is 0 less than or equal to 10? Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. Because that's true, we're going to shade towards our solution. Okay? So you shade towards your solution.
Everybody.
Now you're behind.
Gotta get every box.
How do you guys feel about this?
Dylan.
Feel okay about it?
Every box. Good.
Okay. Maddie, how you feel about this one? Not too bad?
Okay.
Okay, let's look at the next 2 example problems, and then we're going to move on to a second part. So I have not learned this or looked at this since high school. I've been out of high school a long time. So I had to refresh my memory on this several times. Okay, so what am I going to do here? Maddie, tell me what my first step is. Because what's my goal? Yeah, I'm solving for y because I'm rewriting it in slope-intercept form. Okay, go ahead and do that for me.
Negative x on both sides.
Okay. What's on my right?
-2. Or
I can't combine those because they're not like terms. So I bring down my x, which is negative x.
Not yet. Yeah, so sorry. Negative x plus 3.
Okay. Now,
Then divide
by
y or 1.
negative 1, right? Take that negative with it.
Negative 1.
Okay, because I'm dividing by a negative, what happens to my inequality sign?
It flips.
That's right. Okay. So basically that negative x is like negative 1x. So what's negative 1 divided by negative 1? Anybody?
Positive 1.
Positive 1. So do I really need to write 1x or could I just write x? I could just write x, okay? Then what's 3 divided by negative 1? What's 3 divided by negative 1? Negative 3. Okay. Step 1, complete. If you guys get chilly, let me know. Step 2, graph it.
Bob.
Twist it. What's that? Where do I start? I start at my origin. Which direction do I go? Down 3. 1, 2, 3.
First choice.
Okay. And then what about for my slope?
You upward number 1?
Yep. And then just because I want 3 points. What kind of line am I going to graph?
Solid.
A solid because of the inequality sign is greater than or less than. Okay, so that's step 1 and step 2. Silence it for me, yeah. Thank you for asking before just getting it out. Step 3, select a test point. What's my test point? 0, 0. Okay, let's see if it works or not. So I go back to my original equation. I substitute. 0 minus 0 is 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 3? So my solution is true. So I shade towards my solution. So I run towards my solution. Now, if you wanted to check, you could look at your inequality sign. I wouldn't use that inequality. Okay. Last example for this part of the lesson. I think I could give you guys a quiz on this and you do all right. Yeah?
No, I want to do it Thursday.
Well, I'm not going to give it to you. But I think you guys would be okay.
I go for Thursday.
We'll still go Thursday. Well, the only reason why we have to wait until Thursday and I can't give it to you today is because I don't have it made yet. That's what I was working on second hour. Okay, let's take a look at example 4.
Took so much this time.
Okay, here we go. Emily, what do I do first? No, that's not it.
No, it's not that.
Not that. Try again.
Well, that's
Don't you tell me you don't know when you can look at step 1 on your notes.
You solve for y.
Which means I am going to write it in what type of form? Bless you.
Slope intercept.
There we go. So as Riley said, I draw my line, I circle my y because I'm solving for y. What do I get rid of first?
2x.
And I do that by subtracting it. So that will cancel.
The one that's not y.
So then I bring down 3y is greater than or equal to, what do I write on my right side?
2x.
Plus 18. Remember, you can't combine those because they don't have the same terms. They're not like terms. Get the y by itself by dividing. Okay. So then y is going to be greater than or equal to. Now, I didn't flip my inequality sign because I did not divide or multiply by a negative number. What's negative 2/3 divided by 3? Or excuse me, what's negative 2 divided by 3? What am I going to rewrite that as? Josh?
Negative 0.3.
And then what's the variable that goes with it to identify it as a slope? And then what's my, shut it down. And then what's the y-intercept? What? What did you say? Plus 6. How did you get plus 6? Yeah, you just take 18 divided by 3. Okay, so now we're ready to graph. I go to my coordinate plane. Start at my y-intercept. Which direction do I go?
Up 6 and down 2 over 3.
How do you know what way to go?
It's positive. So because it's positive, you go up. And then your slope, because it's a negative, you then go down 2 and then to the right 3.
Because the bottom number's positive.
Because the top number is positive. Or, yeah, the bottom number is positive. Sorry. Okay, what kind of line am I going to graph?
Solid.
Solid. Oh, man, we didn't get to graph very many dotted lines. That's a little disappointing. Okay, step 1, step 2 is done. Step 3, what is it?
0 to 0.
What does that mean, though, Ben?
You have to put it by the middle and put
Because that's your what? That's your test point, right? That's going to be our test point. And now what do I do with that information?
you substitute x and y as your 0.
I think it's definitely false.
Okay, now if it's false, if our solution is false,
When we shaded like up,
we shade away. So here's our solution. If it's false, we shade away from it. We run away from the solution.
Is that an 8 or
That's a real ugly 0.
I thought it was an 8.
I'm sorry, guys. Real ugly 0. Because we substituted, remember our test point was 0, 0. So we substitute a 0 for each one. Okay, so that's the first half of our lesson. In all honesty, I feel that if you refer to your notes, the first 4 steps when you get stuck, you'll do just fine on them, okay? Now, let's look at the next part. This next part is going to be solving inequalities from graph. So, I am going to apologize to you now. When I wrote these note sheets first, I got the notes from the book, which I thought would explain it very well, but then I sat down with Miss Mallet and we kind of redid them. So Braden came to the high school last night and Miss Herman this morning helped me go through and fix the notes. So, did you take all that white out? You're such a turkey.
I did that too.
Braden worked real hard to get that white out on there perfectly.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Have you ever seen have you guys seen those rolly whiteouts?
Yeah.
I bet my lines aren't as good as his.
Ugh. And then his ex, he's like, Mom, some of the X's aren't good. I'm like, make sure they're good. Okay, here's our goal. We're going to graph the boundary. Basically what we just did, okay? In order to do that, though, this time, we're going to have to get the X by itself. So we're not writing it in slope-intercept form. We're basically finding what the X is, okay? We're going to select a test point. We've already done that. Then step 4, we're going to shade the half plane that contains the solution, run towards the solution or away if it's false. Step 5 and 6, this is the new step. We're going to identify the x-intercept. So where that line crosses through the x-axis, that's going to be our answer, and then we're going to write it as a solution. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second here. Okay? So there's really nothing that you guys need to write as far as your steps. I provided them for you. So here's your first example. So what do you notice about this example as compared to the previous 4 examples?
They don't have a y.
It doesn't have a y. So that's why we're going to have to get the x by itself in order to graph it, okay? So we have this time we're solving for x. We want to get the x by itself. So we're basically we're going to follow the same steps here. So how do I get the x by itself? What do I have to get rid of? Add 3 to both sides.
20 divide equals 5.
So we have x
Okay, breathe.
is greater than or equal to 5. Okay. this here is your solution. Okay?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So this is your first part of your answer.
Yeah.
Now we have to graph it. So if it's x is greater than or equal to 5, where would I plot this 5 at? On the x-axis, which is right here. And it's a positive 5, so I go over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Is that your phone?
If they move it over there, except now I hear it over there, so it in there.
No, it's not my phone, because if it was my phone, it would be vibrating on my wrist. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of line am I going to draw?
It's
Undefined.
What, dotted or solid?
solid. Oh,
Solid. Now, when it's the x-axis, when I'm graphing for the x, is it going to be a horizontal or a vertical line that I'm going to graph?
Vertical.
A vertical.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember this part.
Now, I continue following my steps, which the next steps say, select a test point in either half plane. What's the test point that we're going to continue to use? 0, 0. I should do. Okay, so 0, 0. So we go back to our original equation and we substitute. So I have 4. What do I substitute for x? 0. Minus 3. Okay. Well, 4 times 0 cancels itself out, right? Yeah. So what we're left with is negative 3 is greater than or equal to 17. Is that a true statement or a false statement? That's a false statement. So because it's false, I'm not going to shade where my solution is because this didn't work, did it? So I'm going to shade away from the solution. Now that line that we drew, that's our boundary line. So we have to make sure that when we shade, we stay on the right side of the boundary line.
You went over.
Oh, be quiet. I did just a little bit. Just a little bit. Josh, you feel okay? Did Emily bring the plague back with her? Okay, do we have this down? All right, let's take a look at example number 6.
Is that a negative 2?
Yeah. So we have negative 2x plus 6 is greater than 12. So my first step says graph the boundary, which means we have to get the x by itself. Now, if there's an x and a y here, wouldn't I just write it in slope-intercept form? Yeah, but there's not. So I have to get the x by itself. How do I do that?
Minus 6.
That's right. So now I have negative 2x is greater than 6. Keep going. By.
Negative 2.
Okay, so then x. Now I'm dividing by a negative, so what has to happen?
Sign.
Flip it. 6 divided by negative 2.
Negative 3.
Negative 3. Okay. So let's go ahead and graph it. So remember, I'm going to graph it on my x-axis. So I'm going to start at my origin. Now, it's negative 3. So am I going to go left or right? So left, 1, 2, 3. And what kind of line, what kind of boundary am I going to draw here?
Vertical.
Vertical. And is it going to be solid or dotted? Dotted. Okay, again, my dotted lines aren't going to look as nice as yours. Please use your nice, neat rulers.
There, that's my dad. A line halfway erased.
Kind of reminds me of a bunch of Mike and Ikes just laid out in a row. Okay,
I might just do this.
our next step. Where we select our test point. What's our test point going to be? 0, 0.
That's what I did last year.
Okay. So we have negative 2, substitute for 0, plus 6 is greater than 12. Anything times 0 cancels. So basically it's 6 is greater than 12. Is that true or false?
False.
And that is going to be false. So we shade away from the solution. Okay? So we shade away from our solution. So basically, that is saying that x is less than -3. Okay? So our final answer is x is less than -3. And then how we'd graph that would be right here. You ready for the assignment?
Yeah.
Josh is like, let's do this quiz tomorrow.
No, it's not.
Let's do it. We're ready.
No. Oh, no, I'm not ready.
So, what's this whole unit been pretty much about, though? Graphing and solving what? Systems, right? So, if we've been graphing and solving systems, what do you think I'm going to do with this next week?
Graph.
Solving systems using linear equations, okay?
Oh, jeez.
We got this, though.
I hate math.
We love it.
I hate it. With a burning passion.
Who's we?
You do have to use your brain. That's for sure.
All of us. We're in it together. So, first step, we need to graph it. In order to graph it, we have to get the x by itself. So in order to get the x by itself, I have circled the variable, drew my line, and my next thing I'm going to do is what?
Add the egg.
That's right, Maddie.
Bring your 2x down.
Okay.
Goodbye.
5, 10. Do I need to flip my inequality sign?
Not yet.
Okay. So this here is my answer, okay? That's what the graph is going to represent. That's what we're going to show. So when I go to plot this, or when I go to graph this now, I go to my origin. And which way do I go on my x-axis?
Right.
Right, how many?
3.
What kind of line am I going to draw? Solid or dotted?
Solid.
Double check that.
Dotted.
Dotted and vertical or horizontal?
I can figure out if it's dotted.
How do you figure out if it's dotted or solid? Right here. Dotted or dashed if it's greater than or equal to, or excuse me, greater than or less than. Solid if it has that equal sign to it. Okay? Okay? So we said, you guys told me it was going to be vertical
Define.
and dashed. God, that is just horrific looking. I'm going to have to find a better way to graph that. Okay. What's my next step?
Test.
0, 0. Does anybody know when I could not use the ordered pair 0, 0 for my test point?
It's 0, 0.
Yeah, if I would actually have my x and the 0, 0, or my x would cross and the 0, 0, you couldn't use that as a test point. And then you just pick 3, 3 or something like that. It doesn't really matter. You just want to use the same numbers.
1, 1.
1, 1. Okay, so here we go. We're going to substitute here. So we have 10 times 0 minus 8 is less than 22. Well, 10 times 0 cancels. Is negative 8 less than 22?
Yes.
Yeah, so my solution is true. So I'm going to shade. I'm going to run towards my solution. I'm going to shade my solution side. So that's telling us that x is greater than 3. Or excuse me, x is less than 3. So it means x is somewhere over here.
You forgot to draw the line of equality.
What did I forget to draw?
The line of equality.
Where? I don't have to there. I'm just simplifying it. I'm not solving for a variable. You can if you want to keep your sides separate, but either way, it's okay. Last one. Josh, your dream's coming true. You're going to get your homework assignment very shortly.
Can I do it by myself?
No, Ben, I'm not going to have you do it by yourself. But I like your enthusiasm. Oh. Oh, no. I didn't mess up. But oh no, this one looks different than the other ones.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't have an X.
It doesn't have an X. It just has a. So what do you think we're going to do? Solve for Y. That's right.
How is that hard?
Did you know what to do, Joshua?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you pipe up.
We did it with the X. Why not do it with Y?
Tell me what to do then.
This.
Now what?
I gotta write it.
Dylan's like, come on, boy, let's go.
-8.
Minus 8.
Y equals 5.
Not equals.
Or less than y is
Okay.
less than or equal to 5.
Do I need to flip my inequality sign?
No.
Nope. So y is less than or equal to 5. Okay. Where am I going to graph this?
Go up 5.
And you're graphing on what, Dylan?
What?
What are you graphing that on? That's on your what axis?
Y inner.
Yeah, your y-axis, okay? So you're going to go up 5. Am I going to have a solid or a dotted line?
So,
And because it's y, is it going to be vertical or horizontal?
Horizontal.
Do you see how this is tying together now? We use all this little information that we built upon to get here. Okay? Next step is what?
Figure
Oh,
out.
it's up top.
0, 0.
Okay, so, oh, that's my answer there. Okay, so 0, 0, so I 5, substitute 0, plus 8 is less than or equal to 33. Okay, that cancels, so 8 less than or equal to 33. Is that a solution? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I shade top or bottom?
towards.
Bottom, yeah, so towards my solution. And that's it.